Thursday, April 16, 2026, AGNDD, intelliReport topic. Trump announces 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon. Please pardon any visual and informational inaccuracies in this partially AI-generated article-based video. Trump announces 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon. A pause in hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah could help pave the way for a peace deal in the U.S.-Iran war. CNN, updated 2:25 p.m. EDT, the April 16, 2026. Here's the latest. Ceasefire in Lebanon. U.S. President Donald Trump says a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon will begin at 5 p.m. ET. An Israeli source and a leading Hezbollah official acknowledged the deal in separate comments to CNN, noting that they reserve the right to respond to any attacks during the truce. U.S.-Iran diplomacy. The deadly Israeli military offensive in Lebanon has been a key sticking point in negotiations on the U.S.-Iran war. Pakistan's army chief met with officials in Tehran today, and the White House has expressed optimism about reaching a deal, noting that a potential second round of talks would likely be held in Pakistan. Latest from the Pentagon. U.S. military officials said troops in the Middle East are rearming and stand ready to resume combat if Iran negotiations fail. Naval blockade. The Joint Chiefs Chairman warned that the U.S. could use force against ships trying to bypass the blockade against Iranian ports. Less than 1 minute ago, Israel will not withdraw from positions in Lebanon during ceasefire, Netanyahu says. By Dana Carney and Tal Shalev. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the Israeli military will not withdraw from its positions in southern Lebanon during the 10-day ceasefire. We will remain in a 10-kilometer security zone, which will allow us to prevent infiltration into communities and anti-tank missile fire, Netanyahu said in a video statement soon after U.S. President Donald Trump announced the ceasefire on Thursday. We are remaining in Lebanon in an expanded security zone, Netanyahu said, noting that it is a much greater area than Israel held following the November 2024 ceasefire with Lebanon. He described it as a security zone that is much stronger, much more powerful, far more continuous and far more solid than what we had before. That is where we will remain. We are not leaving, he said. Netanyahu said the ceasefire was to allow for the continuation of talks with Lebanon. He said Trump had invited Netanyahu and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun to meet in Washington, D.C. Earlier Thursday, Aoun had declined to take part in a phone call with Netanyahu because of ongoing Israeli attacks on Lebanon. In the talks we have two demands, the disarmament of Hezbollah and a sustainable peace agreement from a position of strength, Netanyahu said. Less than 1 minute ago. Trump says Israel-Lebanon peace talks could happen within 2 weeks. By Adam Cankren. President Donald Trump on Thursday called the prospect of a White House meeting between Israel and Lebanon very exciting, expressing optimism that the two sides could broker a peace deal. I think we're going to have a meeting, he told reporters, adding that it could take place at the White House over the next week or two. The meeting, he said, would be the first in 44 years. Trump's invite came shortly after Israel and Lebanon agreed to a 10-day ceasefire, which he called a very nice little package for about a week. If the two countries reach a permanent truce, Trump said that the agreement would include Hezbollah. I think we will have an agreement between Lebanon, and they're going to take care of Hezbollah, he said, adding that he'd be open to visiting Lebanon at the right time. Less than 1 minute ago, Speaker of Lebanese Parliament warns residents not to return to countries south yet. By Zina Saifi and Hira Humayun. The Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament is warning residents of the south not to return to their villages just yet. Safeguarding lives and personal safety is among our foremost duties, Nabi Berri said in a statement from his office. We urge everyone to exercise patience and delay their return to their towns and villages until the situation and unfolding events become clear in accordance with the ceasefire agreement, he added. His remarks follow U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement that a ceasefire will take effect in Lebanon at 5 p.m. ET. Southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah has traditionally had a stronghold, has faced near constant bombardment and ground assaults for over 2 years. Scores of residents from villages in the south, near the Israeli border, have had to flee amid evacuation warnings from the Israeli military and a deepening ground offensive. International reactions to ceasefire in Lebanon, CNN staff. Government officials and international groups have largely welcomed the announcement of a 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon, though some have cautioned that a truce is only the first step toward lasting stability in the region. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen described the news as a relief, pointing out that the conflict has already claimed many lives. Now, we need not just a temporary pause, but a path to permanent peace, she said. UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon Janine Hennis said the ceasefire could give space for negotiations, and not the battlefield, to dictate what comes next. She called it another important step to break the cycle of conflict. The International Organization for Migration also welcomed the announced ceasefire and urged all parties to uphold it, noting that more than 1 million people have been uprooted as a result of the conflict. Iranian media outlets are portraying the development as a victory for Tehran's negotiating position, claiming that Iran's insistence on linking progress in talks with Washington to a ceasefire in Lebanon compelled the United States and Israel to agree to a ceasefire there. The head of a municipality in northern Israel, however, said a ceasefire is a worse option than the status quo. Amit Sofer, head of the Merom HaGalil Regional Council, insisted that Israel's military should be allowed to achieve its goal of disarming Hezbollah. It is unreasonable for Donald Trump to tie the Lebanese arena to the Iranian arena. By doing so, he condemns northern residents to more years of a constant threat, he said. CNN's Issy Ronald, Hira Humayun, Mohammed Tawfiq, Michael Rios, and Dana Carney contributed to this report. Less than 1 minute ago, everything we know after Trump announced a 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon. By Maureen Chowdhury. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon, which he said would take effect at 5 p.m. ET Thursday. The announcement comes after Trump held separate calls with Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We've also learned that Iran-backed Hezbollah will abide by the ceasefire if Israel ceases its attacks, a leading Hezbollah official told CNN. Lebanon's prime minister has welcomed the announcement. Remember, Tehran argued that Israel's continued bombing campaign against the Iranian proxy group was violating the ceasefire and threatened the fragile truce with the U.S. The U.S. and Israel insisted Lebanon was never part of the 2-week Iran ceasefire, but behind the scenes, Trump officials had been working to get Israel to back off its offensive. If you're just joining us, here are the latest headlines. Trump said that he has invited the leaders of Israel and Lebanon to the White House for peace talks, shortly after he announced the temporary truce. The Israeli Security Cabinet is convening over the phone to discuss the ceasefire in Lebanon, according to an Israeli official. The cabinet did not hold a vote on a ceasefire before Trump's announcement, an official said. The ceasefire terms will be similar to the agreement reached in November 2024. Israel's military will not withdraw from strategic points in southern Lebanon and will continue operating against Hezbollah if it endangers communities or forces, the official said. Prior to the ceasefire announcement, the Israeli military demolished the final crossing over the Litani River, which bisects Lebanon on Thursday, according to Lebanese state media, cutting off tens of thousands of residents in the south from crucial aid links. The Israeli military also launched 3 successive attacks on emergency crews handling a relief mission in southern Lebanon, according to Lebanese authorities, killing 4 paramedics and wounding several others. Meanwhile, Pakistan's army chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, told a senior Iranian military commander while in Tehran that he would continue his efforts to end the war in the Middle East, according to Iran's state-run Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting, IRIB. Oh.
Thank you for watching this AGNDD intelliReport, dear viewers. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell button to get notified during new uploads. And make sure to tune in next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.